Good morning, campers, and welcome to Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. I'm B.
And I'm Zack.
And this week, we read Chapter 19 of Percy Jackson Sea of Monsters. The Chariot Race ends with a bang.
Oh, it certainly does end with a bang, or was it a whimper? I don't know, I'm not really one of a T.S. Eliot scholar.
Yeah, I thought that something a lot worse would happen in this chapter, like the way that it was phrased in the title. I don't know, and ends with a bang just seems like a Rick Riordan like warning that something awful is going to happen.
Or did it? Ooh-wee-oo. Sorry, I'm just like having this very spacious tinfoil hat on right now while you talk. Please continue.
Very spacious. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. It's not like anything happens that I didn't think was going to happen in the chapter, I guess because just the title made me feel like, oh no, what if something bad happens? Or because the chariot race, if we recall, in the beginning of the book isn't so great. And there's like evil birds that swoop down and attack people, and Tantalus is enjoying every minute of it. I mean, obviously Tantalus isn't there anymore. And then the fleece, they put it on Talia's tree. It's starting to get better. The camp is getting better. Monsters are being shielded away from Camp Half-Blood. So it's like actually not bad. Nothing. I mean, not that nothing bad is going to happen because they're still worried about Kronos and a lot of other stuff. But as far as like immediate future, not too bad.
I really did enjoy this chapter a lot because what I was looking at from this is kind of like standard like sitcom format of having like the wraparound story kind of be like the beginning. Like it's kind of like, you know how like they have the beginning, like the main story from the beginning joke usually is the wrap up joke at the end of something.
Yeah, it's like a callback.
Yeah, kind of like a callback because that's pretty much what this was in the end, the first time they did the chariot race, Annabeth was pissed off at Tyson. Percy hated Tyson. And now you have the wraparound where Tyson's helping them. Annabeth loves Tyson. Percy can accept Tyson, and they win the race because of it, because, there's simple knuckleheadedness.
I didn't really think about that, but you're right. It's like sort of a lesson like, oh, well, we can succeed when we work together, which is like this, in a way, like an object lesson about what they did to begin with. And even Annabeth says it at the end of this chapter when she gives Tyson credit. I'm going to be honest, I got a little emotional during that scene. I was like, that's so sweet. Because she was such a jerk to Tyson throughout the book, and even though she kind of like relents a little bit midway through when he starts to help them, she still has her reservations about Cyclopses. But then basically the last couple paragraphs of the chapter is Annabeth going, hold up, listen, it wasn't just us. The crowd didn't want to be quiet, but Annabeth made herself heard. We couldn't have done it without somebody else. We couldn't have won this race, or gotten the fleece, or saved Grover, or anything. We owe our lives to Tyson, Percy's brother, I said, loud enough for everybody to hear. Tyson, my baby brother. And I was like, oh, I'm not crying, it's raining indoors.
It is a very heartfelt moment, as I'm thinking of like the 80s pop music pops in as the credits are about to roll. As like they all...
That's definitely what I thought. It's gonna freeze frame like in Ferris Bueller or something. Like, yeah, definitely.
No, what was gonna happen is they hand like Tyson the trophy and like they all lift Tyson up, even though the joke would be like he's really heavy.
And they'd be like,
yeah, it'd be something like that. But I mean, that's kind of like the emotional core of the story really is, Annabeth overcoming her prejudice. It's a very typical like 80s movie trope of having something, I dislike you, but in the end, we're still good friends. And then there'd be like, Annabeth would say the big cheesy line, I guess one eye is better than two.
Or actually, I feel like it's definitely more of like camp movie tropes in some ways. Like you think about, this happens a lot in camp movies where like they're training for like a big race or a big competition at the end of the summer against the rival camp.
Against like the girls' camp on
the
the
camp
opposite,
that's across the lake.
Yeah, the camp across the lake. There's a lot of tropes like that, but here it actually works because again, it's a nice wraparound story. It's much like Rocky and Rocky 2, how the ending of Rocky 2 kind of like leaves off on like they're going to have a rematch and see who's really going to win.
Yeah. I get what you mean. I liked this chapter. It was like a little bit hokey. Is that the word? Like, I don't know. The way that they wrap it up like neatly in some ways, but I thought it was cute. I'm glad that there was like an explicit narrative moment where everyone kind of admits what they were wrong about. I mean, Tyson wasn't wrong about anything. He was nice from the beginning. He was helpful. Yeah, he was just a little bit bumbling and maybe like made mistakes sometimes that inconvenienced some of his friends, but for the most part, people were just judging him ahead of time.
So the biggest character arc about Tyson is he finally gets accepted and he's not lonely anymore. As we see in this chapter, all he wanted was from Poseidon was really just a friend. And he got many friends. A lot of friends.
There's so much character growth, actually, that's expressed in this chapter, because before this, it's a lot of, like, action, and there is obviously the action of the chariot race, but even that's, like, representative of the character growth and everything of them coming together and admitting their faults to each other. As far as, like, you know, the whole quest is finally wrapping up, and then Percy and Annabeth really come to terms with, like, what they've learned. Like, what did we learn after this? And, you know, they return to camp, and even Percy says, like, oh, they don't laud them as heroes or, like, lift them up like they did last summer. It's Clarice who gets the credit, as she should, because it was her quest, and then they get to quietly sort of arrive.
Yes, and then they have the best part about that is it's kind of like they kind of were like thankful that, you know, they weren't the ones to get the credit because they did like leave camp and they were
right,
almost
they
got
did
expelled.
break the rules. It's like a very, you know, golden trio Harry Potter thing.
I mean, like in Harry Potter, there's a line where it's like Harry's in the infirmary in the Philosopher's Stone and Dumbledore comes in and he's like, well, it seems all this stuff happened. It's all mere speculation. That means everyone in the whole school knows it to be true.
Yeah, it's sort of like, well, ends justify the means. That's definitely like magic children's book thing where, I mean, like, you broke the rules and you didn't exactly listen to me, but in the end it all worked out.
But it doesn't say in the rule books that a dog
That dogs
can't play
compete.
basketball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love how I knew exactly what you were going to say. Somehow go right into the Air Bud joke. Yeah, it doesn't say in the rule book that Cyclopses can't compete.
Yeah. But that's the great thing about this chapter is there's a lot of information that happens because we see a lot of characters return. We see Hermes, we see Chiron, and we see a lot of more interesting things when it comes to like Clarice and how she kind of like makes up with Percy, but in a very Clarice fashion, even though, you know, she's the big hero. She actually like steps back and kind of like thanks Percy in her own little Clarice way.
Well, yeah, by being a jerk, basically, like, oh, well, nothing's changed. You know that. But, like, you know that she's affecting that toughness about her because now she's not in danger and they're, you know, in the safety of camp and back to their old, like, social dynamic that they had.
She has to keep up with appearances because her dad is all-seeing.
Her dad and also her cabin, too, I'm sure. Like, they don't expect her to be, like, buddies with Percy. Like, it doesn't make sense because of their rivalry and everything like that. That we've talked about the arbitrariness of the cabin rivalries.
If we were to like break down this chapter a lot, I would consider it half sports movie ending and then half like, what is it, like the movie Mask with Cher almost, where it's like, it's okay to be different and here are the reasons why.
Yeah, you're right. It definitely is. I'm sure that a movie exists like that that's both a sports movie and like a it's okay to be different movie. That's definitely something that exists already, right? Surely someone made it. That sounds like Oscar bait waiting to happen. The Water Boy? Are we using The Water Boy as an example?
Okay, no, let's just like Adam Sandler doing like his weird baby angry voice the entire time.
What is that voice that he does?
Like, it's like a really creepy voice. I guess, not like Happy Madison, he's just an idiot. What's another? Oh, maybe Forrest Gump, the first 10 minutes of that
Forrest
movie.
Gump. There's some Forrest Gump elements happening here for sure. Where, yeah, well, he's good at running and ping pong.
I mean, we could talk about this forever. What would you call it? Like,
oh, like if you just made a sports movie about the chariot race and then learning to accept Tyson, you mean? Oh no, wait, I know what it's called, Zach. Eye on the prize, because he has one eye.
Eye on the prize.
Yes, that's the name of the movie.
Oh, you know what the main theme song would be, right? B. Eye of the Tiger.
Eye of the Tiger. Yeah. Yep. We just made the movie. That needs to happen. There you go. So it's like it's a trio, right? Like a trifecta of movies that we've thought of. There's Horsin' Around 2, and then in the same universe as Horsin' Around is Eye on the Prize.
So this is the Horsin' Around expanded universe?
The expanded, yeah.
Oh god, this sounds terrible. I don't even want this to happen.
I do.
But yes, it's going to happen. And yeah, there's like a lot of things that I really enjoyed about this chapter. Like when it comes to like, well, let's get into it because I feel like if we keep saying, oh, these are the things that we love, these are the things that we also love, is that by just talking about it, it makes it easier. So the chapter kind of opens up with Percy is on Chiron's back. They've been like going like really fast, and they get to the camp.
They awkwardly don't talk about Kronos because that's his dad, and that's awkward.
Yeah, that'd be like real awkward. Like, hey, Chiron, so your dad ate all the gods and is trying to kill us all.
Yeah.
I bet Thanksgiving was real awkward those years.
Yeah, real tense around the Kronos house. I'm just imagining like an unfathomable beast just being like, pass the gravy.
No, I'm thinking about like the Christmas specials or the holiday specials that they watch. Like what Kronos is like, I want to watch Elf. But Charlie Brown Christmas is on, Chiron says.
You know that Chiron would be like, I want to watch Krampus.
Yeah, no, there's like, it would be like a real awkward situation, and just imagine that awkward dinner conversation with all the, just imagine Thanksgiving with all the gods, like just sitting there oh my god, like, just all the gods just sitting at the table. Oh, it would be like a nightmare.
Yeah, I feel like that would be, definitely a National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation kind of situation where it's just sort of Chiron being like, we'll have the happiest Christmas this side of the nut house. Like, he'll just, have some sort of breakdown after everybody is acting selfish and ridiculous.
Poseidon's like, hey, Ares, can you pass the salt? And like, Ares is just being super salty and is not doing it. Okay, I'm sorry that my son, like, defrauded you because you're a big old jerk face, but could you at least pass the salt?
Yeah, and then Tantalus is just trying to corner a pie.
And the pie leaves him.
Well, we kind of touch on that a little bit about how every demigod is related, because we sort of forget that sometimes, narratively speaking, like, oh, right, this is just a camp, but then you remember, like, technically they're all related, and then Hermes shows up and talks about that a little bit. About the sort of dynamic that they have as a family.
Yeah, and that's one of the more interesting aspects of it, because they get to the camp. Clarice is welcomed in open arms because she's the one that finishes the quest as in the prophecy, and, she did all the proper channels, so this was her big moment, and everyone cheers and loves her. And she puts the gigantic golden fleece onto the branches of the tree. Thankfully, it's not too late, as magically the tree sprouts back to life. The pines disappear, as well as the leaves turn green, and it's a big old magical event that happens. Just imagine, like, if this was a movie, which it is, I feel like a gigantic like laser beam would like shoot into the sky.
We don't talk about that movie.
Yeah, we don't talk about the movie, but like in my brain, what I'm thinking of, because I haven't seen the movie, is they put it on and a gigantic like laser beam, like a blue laser beam, just shoots into the sky and everyone's happy.
You mean like when they open the spell book in Hocus Pocus? Like,
my favorite thing though about that was it's like afterwards they had like guard patrol, and that they were gonna order like maybe like a monster from the Olympus Times to like just hire it to like guard the tree. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, which is kind of, I feel, risky, right? To get like an outside monster to guard a thing. Like, why don't you just assign campers or something? Or I don't know. They've already had problems with people, and then they didn't even trust Chiron to not poison the tree. So, like, who can you really trust to guard this thing?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the whole camp is completely, like, wrecked. Like, they get there, and, like, a lot of the buildings are burned, and I guess, like, a dragon, like, I gotta read this. It's in Latin. Bear in mind, I don't know Latin all that well. The Draco Antinius? Ionius?
Oh, yeah, the creatures that breathe fire or whatever.
I know what Draco means. I've read Harry Potter. I know Draco means dragon.
I thought it meant annoying character in Harry Potter.
So it's a Draco Aeonius or Aeonius. I am so sorry if you speak Latin. I know it's a dead language and all.
Well, technically no one knows what Latin sounds like.
Which, as near as I could figure, was Latin for a really big lizard with breath that blows stuff up.
Yep. Yeah. The whole camp is basically trashed. Wasn't it like what the arts and crafts building just completely burned down?
Yeah, and a lot of kids are like first aid. They have like a triage where it's just a bunch of like the Hermes kids doing like CPR and first aid to other wounded kids, which just sounds like a freaking nightmare.
Yeah.
Like someone has like horrible like 3rd-degree burns and like a Hermes kid's trying to put like a Band-Aid.
I feel like Percy and Annabeth showing up onto the grounds of Camp Half-Blood is sort of like that gif where what is that from? Community? Where like the guy walks in and he's holding the pizza and everything's on fire and they just turn around like, oh, well, this is a disaster. That's kind of like what they walk into because they've been on their whole other quest, so they haven't even really been able to think too much about what's going on in Camp Half-Blood. And then they arrive and they're like, everyone's legs are broken, everything's on fire. Like the guy from SpongeBob is like, my leg! Like it's a whole disaster.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's, they come in at the right time. The tree's just about to die. They get there on the literal, 11th hour. They do it. Everything's all right. They have a gigantic, Ewok party at the end of, Return of the Jedi. The Yub Nub song.
The Ewoks. Yeah. I'm really relieved that the Golden Fleece starts to work because for a split second I was like, oh my god, what if it doesn't fix Talia's trait? Then we did all of this for nothing.
That certainly would have been a big old twist if that was to not work. But luckily it did because this is a kid story where everything's A-okay.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised it works so gradually. Like they start to say oh, well, it was working over time. Like we need someone to guard it because it's still regaining its health and the poison's still being leached out of it. Well, you think, a magic cure that you just place a fleece on it and all of a sudden you snap your fingers and it's a perfect, beautiful tree of life with a golden glow around it. But it actually takes some time.
Well, they did set that up earlier when Annabeth is unconscious
with
and
Annabeth.
Broken ribs and stuff. It didn't happen instantaneously. The magic gradually happens. You would think the same thing probably would have happened if they draped it onto Kronos's sarcophagus. It would have taken some time before I have gone to full power. But it isn't like that, which, it's a nice thing to have something like that where it just doesn't instantaneously work, where it's still built. I'm about to say it's still built in reality, but we're talking about a gigantic golden fleece that fixes a
heals
dying
a magic tree that
Yeah.
protects a camp full of demigod. Yeah, we're still talking about that story, so reality isn't quite.
I'm thinking I'm playing D&D. It's it obviously takes a couple rounds for it to work. Oh, my bad. But yeah, so it works and everyone's happy. And, Annabeth and Percy don't want any of the glory. They're actually happy for that. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind type of situation here. If they acknowledge it, they probably would be expelled. But I guess their gift is because no one's acknowledging it. They did the quest and they get partial credit.
Yeah. Also, I feel like it was Tantalus who had the hell path on them to get them to be kicked out of Camp Half-Blood, and he had this whole vendetta against them. But Mr. D didn't really care that much. He's sort of just ambivalent, and really bad at his job.
Speaking of Mr. D, which was really funny, as the party ponies all come, we're oh my god, we're gonna hang out with the party god. And then they just meet this slub of a man who's just yeah, I can't do much partying these days. I'm all partied out for the next 100 years.
Yeah, very disappointing.
I'm oh, I wanted to party with the party god.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like this is a very good, what is this, second to last chapter, right? Because
this is the penultimate chapter, yeah.
It does well wrapping up a lot of the things that you want, sort of a nice little bow. We kind of were in the falling action, you could see that things were going to work out, oh, we got the fleece. Clarice was on her way to the camp, things were falling into place. But now, we get to see, okay, the tree is being healed, they're rebuilding Camp Half-Blood, Tantalus is gone, Chiron is back.
Everything's right in the world, hopefully, except as Percy Jackson's, relaxing and having a couple days to himself, Hermes comes to deliver a message, and I think it's so funny that he's in a U.S. Postal Service outfit.
Yeah, he always has a different outfit on.
Yeah, the first time was in running everything, and now he's just as a postman. I'm just thinking, oh, those short shorts, oh god. And just imagine, okay, they casted Nathan Fillion in this role. I don't want to see his chicken legs.
They did? They cast him?
Yeah, he's Hermes.
For some reason, that doesn't fit my image of him, but maybe that's because my image of Hermes comes from, the Hercules animated movie.
In Sea of Monsters, it's Nathan Fillion, in one of his many roles.
I don't know, I didn't imagine him particularly muscular or anything like that, or strong-jawed.
No, you don't. He doesn't have to be particular muscular. He just needs to know how to deliver FedEx.
Yeah, exactly. He just kind of travels around. He is helpful. He's an interesting character to me because he helps Percy so much that sometimes I'm skeptical of him, especially when they have this whole conversation about how gods can't really help their demigod children that much because if they interfere too much then it makes it worse in some ways, so they have to do it in these roundabout ways. And then I started to think oh, is all of this secretly Hermes helping Luke because he's his son. I mean, that's like ridiculous because he does help Percy a whole lot in getting the fleece and everything, but I'm like a little bit skeptical. Like, oh, maybe I imagine Hermes being like, oh, well, maybe my son is right or something, because again, we're thinking about these like familial ties, like, oh, that's why Chiron got accused of poisoning Talia's tree. Like, oh, who's your parent? Where do you lie as far as loyalties go?
Well, I mean, like in this chapter, they kind of talk about how, Percy Jackson tried diplomacy and that didn't work. And a lot of what was said by Hermes was kind of like, yeah, we're kind of like the parents, like, it's like a curse almost of like we can't really help our kids. I mean, we can help them very indirectly, but it's almost like a drug almost, where the kids would become dependent on them, and it would make so many different problems.
Yeah, well, he also kind of talks about how. Hold on, I want to find the exact phrasing because it's basically like, just if you like meddle too much in some ways, it's worse.
Well, yeah, it's worse because again, it's like a drug. It's like they're almost like they're expecting their parents to always help them and swoop in, but like. A god can only go so far. It's almost like the way I'm looking at it is like a kid that's kind of like a screw up almost, and then keep going to jail, and they're always expecting their parents to like bail them out until the one time they don't, and then that's when they get their life together. A very like a Hallmark type of movie.
The line that Hermes says is, Percy, the hardest part about being a god is that you must often act indirectly, especially when it comes to your own children. If we were to intervene every time our children had a problem, well, that would only create more problems and more resentments. So it's kind of vague, like you don't exactly know what he means by problems. Like, I do think because they're gods and they have like so much sway as far as like the way the world works, I do think that if they interfered so much, I keep thinking actually about, do you watch The Good Place at all?
I watched a little bit of it.
I don't want to spoil it too much because it's a very good show, but basically there's this character has almost godlike powers, and he keeps trying to like reset things to have them go exactly right, and then just like the more he tries to fix it, the worse it gets. And it's like that's a similar thing here where like they have all this power in the world, but if you like try to overcorrect, I mean, they also do this even in like time travel movies, right? Like you redo life.
Yeah, they do it a lot in like, well, I mean, Back to the Future is not a good example because Marty McFly doesn't learn anything in the first movie. Like everything about him, like his life is perfect at the end of that movie. He didn't learn a single dang thing.
Yeah, it's more like Groundhog Day or something, where it's like you try to fix like a little thing, and then everything kind of like, gets out of proportion. A small little thing that you change, you think that you're helping things, but actually it sort of butterfly effects and actually causes like worse things to happen. And I think that is sort of what Hermes is talking about.
I actually have a good example of this. Bruce Almighty.
Yeah, exactly.
There's like things that he does in that movie. I actually really enjoy this movie. There's the part where it's like he's trying to like make a beautiful night for his wife. So like he makes the moon closer. He does all these things. Comes out the next day, turns out by making the moon a little bigger, he's screwed up like the water pattern, so he's caused floods, he's done all these things. It's like, oh, I'm gonna give everyone like a little bit of the lottery, and all of a sudden everyone's rich and they don't know what to do with their money. Like it's just like mass hysteria. Like everything that he thinks he's helping with is making things 1,000 times worse because you have to like think of the implications of everyone rather than yourself.
Right, yeah. Or he like makes that thing where he says yes to everything with the prayers, and then the world becomes like a trash fire. It's sort of like that.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Like if everyone wishes, I guess it's actually the same principle here with Hermes and kind of the gods. If you pretty much said yes to all replies, like all their kids wouldn't know what to do. They would just be like they'd be like the house would be on fire. Like this is fine.
Also, in some cases, they shouldn't get help. Like in Luke's case, he doesn't deserve help from his parent because he's terrible and he's doing terrible things, and he should feel bad.
Again, it's like the idea of like having help from your parents, like in this way of having like, literally a god helping you is almost like a drug, almost where they become like codependent on it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, they can solve all my problems with magic. And then like gods don't work like that. So the second like they're in a problem that's really big and their parent doesn't help them, they'll resent them for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Such as with Luke and how he just wants to make his dad proud. Same as how Hermes said, do you hate your dad? And like
well, he doesn't
like,
quite say that. I think.
Well, he says, do you resent your dad?
Yeah, do you resent him? Yeah. I think it's important to to note, though, that Hermes asked, do you ever feel like your father abandoned you? It's definitely like a motivation of like a lot of the different half-bloods, like that, whether that ends up being good or bad, their life is really impacted by like their kind of stilted relationship with their respective godparents, because they're like, they can't really interact with them. It's not the same as a normal parent-child relationship, as we've talked about. Like they literally can't interact with them the same way, because like we said, like they can't really influence their life as much. They don't see them as much. They have like a lot of, powers that just, it doesn't incorporate into like a human's life the same way, or a demigod's life, because they're living in the human realm. Their understanding of a normal parent-child relationship is really different than a god's.
I mean, when it comes to it, like if we look at Luke and Percy, they're pretty much, if you look at them almost like the same way, they're very similar characters, except one's evil, one's good. Percy's obviously, well, I'm doing quotation marks, is good, is that both of them have been abandoned by their dads. All they wanted to do was make them proud. If we look at Luke's quest, he had to do pretty much a quest that has already been done before, and all he got was a scar on his face and no thanks. Percy, pretty much, his dad was like, yeah, you're my secret weapon. You have to go to Los Angeles. You have to do all these things. And in the end, Poseidon's like, I guess thank you. Well, bye, son. I hate you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a messed up dynamic to have, and I think it would cause like a lot of complexes in people, because it's just like every summer you have to like go on a quest and risk your life and do all these things for not a lot of thanks, or you don't get a quest and then you don't even really get any recognition and you just train endlessly to kill monsters.
There's also the idea again of like there's campers that have not been even claimed by their parents. Like their parents don't give two cruds about them enough for to say, yeah, you're my kid. Like there's just people that are just always in limbo. And it's kind of like the weird dynamic of the gods. If you look at Percy, he could easily go to Luke's side if he had I guess his moral compass always makes him want to be good, whereas Luke, he kind of understands the system to the point of where it's stupid, and that's why he's kind of been like, not manipulated, but he's kind of like understands the badness of Kronos, of just like, yeah, we should tear this all down because this is all stupid.
I mean, the interesting thing about Luke and Percy is that they have the same set of data points, they just come to a different conclusion. Like, Percy is upset that his dad doesn't give him attention, but he doesn't ever like extrapolate that to, oh, so we should burn it all down. Like, that's sort of like a boy that escalated quickly situation.
Well, there's certain people that are totally like that, and Percy has the moral compass of saying no, like he's like refused power before, whereas Luke, he literally has backbiters, so he can kill humans and he can kill monsters. Like, he can do whatever he wants. Percy, on the other hand, as we look at this race, he still plays by the rules even when people are cheating.
Yeah.
That is Percy Jackson to a fault, is that he has to play in the rules, whereas Luke's just like, I can do whatever I want. I'm a bad witch. You can't kill me.
He's not like an ends justify the means kind of person, really. I mean, Percy's willing to like break rules if it doesn't like necessarily hurt people, but he still is very like, he believes in doing the right thing, quote unquote, whatever that means. But
he believes in the greater good. Actually, even Luke believes in they both believe in the greater good, almost.
It's just a different greater good. Yeah. They don't agree on what the greater good is.
Yeah, and the problem, though, is, again, with, like, Poseidon and Percy's relationship is kind of like they're just, neither of them know what to do, because we have the much bigger situation, whereas, with Hermes and Luke, Hermes isn't, like, a huge god, he's not part of the big three, whereas Percy should not have been born, and he's pretty much like a secret weapon and all these things, and having Luke as, like, an antagonist is a great, like, damper to Percy, because he's not like this super big macho god. It's just Hermes. He delivers packages.
Yeah, he's a UPS guy, basically, or like in this case, a postal service guy. Oh my god, I just imagined Kevin James' character in King of Queens. That's Hermes, just like in his UPS outfit.
I'm so sorry, everybody. We don't affiliate with Kevin James. Oh god. Now it's like one of the images, he turns into Paul Blart.
Oh no, that'd be really bad. I mean, in some ways that would make more sense for Hermes' character, because he's not threatening or imposing at all. He seems pretty wise, and in some ways is like one of my favorite characters, because he's not nearly as impulsive or selfish as a lot of the other characters, or even the gods.
If you look at his dynamic of who is Hermes? What are the things that attribute to being like a Hermes kid or just being Hermes? What are their cabin? What are like their mottos?
Yeah, I mean, like, they're known for travelers, right? Like, and that's why like all the new campers go to their cabin. So there's like a certain sense of like hospitality there as well.
Same as with like healing, as well as they're like thieves. Like there's many different things when it comes to like Hermes. There's so many different, like if we look at like the morality chart, I would actually put maybe Hermes as like dead neutral almost. Like he can like sway both ways. Like he's not really chaotic good or chaotic evil. He's just Hermes.
Yeah, I like his character, and it's interesting because he, he's just trying to help Percy, and it doesn't feel, like he's manipulating him in any way. He's like, oh, can you like help me convince my son? And I know like you tried your best. He doesn't get like unfairly angry at Percy that he didn't succeed at convincing Luke to the other side. Like he's like, oh, well, Luke is pretty bad now. And then Hermes is like, well, I kind of thought that, but you gave it the old college try.
I mean, it could be totally easy. All Hermes has to do is like fly down, turn into his god form, and just melt everyone on the ship. Like he could easily like just ask Poseidon to like destroy that ship, but he's not going to, because that would mean he'd have to work directly against Luke. Like the only way that he can like actually talk to his son is, by proxy through Percy Jackson and do all these things.
He needs to help his enemies to help his son, which is like a whole complicated thing where he's like technically working against Luke, but he just wants Luke to realize that he's been doing the wrong thing.
Like he could easily like destroy that ship, but he's not going to, because it's the old way of thinking of you can't help directly, you have to work indirectly, which is very fascinating. Except the most fascinating part about this is that they're all talking about this, and they're talking about Poseidon, and Hermes has a letter from Poseidon to give to Percy, and Percy is super excited. It is like the most beautiful calligraphied message. Like it comes in like a blue envelope. It smells like the sea.
Yeah, the pen is made out of snakes.
And what does it say? No, it's not made out of snakes. The stylus is made out of snakes.
Oh, that's what I said. The pen is made out of snakes.
George and Martha, again, we're not sure if they're the hippos, they're the presidents, or they're like, or Rick Riordan's neighbors, or maybe parents. I'm sure there's many speculations. We actually have a team of like cryptoologists.
I think Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is where it came from, personally, because they're like bickering like an old married couple. But it could be a lot of things.
Rick Riordan, if you know the answer, which you probably do, I'd be kind of scared. Like, I don't know. Email us at radiocampaplet@gmail.com. Thank you.
If he said that they were based off of the hippos, I would be pretty impressed.
But yeah, so Percy opens up this letter, and what does it say, B? What is the gigantic big truth bomb?
2 simple words were printed in the middle of the page. Brace yourself. Gee, thanks, Dad. That's helpful.
Now, what do you think brace yourself means?
I don't even know. Something bad is about to happen. But also, now I'm thinking, like, much like the chapters in these books, there are a lot of, like, prophecies and other things that we hear from other characters are vague and double-sided in their meaning. So brace yourself could mean, like, oh, ready for something bad to happen. But also, like, does he mean, like physically brace yourself? Does he need, like, some sort of braces on his body because he's about to be attacked? Like, I don't even know. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, other meanings that brace yourself could mean.
Oh, so you think what's going to happen is they're going to have, like, air horns, and Percy has to get to the nearest fridge before the nuke destroys Camp Half-Blood?
Yeah, just imagine that's how the book ended. Just everything gets blown up, and they're like, yep, it's a 2-book series.
All the other books are blank. Rick Riordan, you smart man.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I have no idea what brace yourself means, because, I mean, it's intentionally vague.
When it comes to, like, prophecies, again, like, they could be both, physical, or they could be, both, like, mental, of having, like, hey, you should brace yourself for this, or you should really brace yourself. Like, something's going to happen. Someone's going to, like, knife you in the back, almost.
Yeah, it could literally be anything. And now he's just made his son paranoid. Like, that's not helping at all. Like, well, something bad is going to happen now between the end of time. And then it's like, he has to worry all the time about what.
But he's already been paranoid ever since the 2nd chapter when he saw the Fates snip that yarn.
Oh, I know that. Yeah. Of course. So he kind of already has all these prophetic things conspiring against him to make him feel like something bad's gonna happen. So I feel like Brace Yourself doesn't really prepare him, because he kind of already knows. Like, he knows that Kronos is still in that spooky sarcophagus and that Luke wants to bring him back. He knows that there's some sort of prophecy about a decision that's going to be made when you turn 16 and blah, blah, blah. There's like a lot of stuff that's in the works as far as bad stuff happening. So Brace Yourself is so vague. There isn't even really a time limit. Like, does he mean brace yourself right now, this very second? Does he mean brace yourself in the next few years? Like, remember, Percy isn't even close to like being the right age for that prophecy to come to fruition. So
it's the exact same philosophy that Hermes just preached about having, he could easily Poseidon could have been like, hey, blah, 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 blah. This is what's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. But instead, he can't say that, so he has to indirectly say, hey, brace yourself. It's vague enough where it's indirect, but also it's direct at the same time. Like,
I feel like it's almost better if he didn't warn him, because I don't think that this helps in any way.
But, I mean, it could mean so many variety of things, and I'm just smiling right now, because I know what brace yourself means.
Well, because you know what it means, but exactly. Like, I'm just thinking, like, I'm
just going to tell you, B.
Yeah, you are.
Percy has to get braces. I hate to tell you that. That's what brace yourself means.
Yeah, he has to go to the orthodontist. That's like a whole random divergence from this genre, is just Percy coping with the fact that he has braces.
So what's going to happen next? Because he's going to get, like, celestial bronze braces so he can start, like, biting monsters, and they just, like, poof in the dust.
Anyway. We have no idea what this means.
I do, but
it's not very helpful. Well, yeah, okay, we as in the royal we.
But it's so cryptic, and yet they have to get to the race, the big race bee. And it's really interesting as we get to the chariot race again that Chiron has reinstated, and that, Percy is just about to get on to Athena's good old wagon. I can't remember the name. Chariot. That's the word I'm looking for. Chariot,
Wagon.
Yeah.
It's just like a radio flyer, like tied to a horse. And go.
Oh, it's like a soapbox derby.
Well, it kind of is, right? Because isn't that at the end of, what is that? Is it Heavyweights? Is that the camp movie
I'm thinking of?
Little
Rascals. That's the one with the soapbox.
No, there's like a couple movies that end that way.
I'm thinking of like Little Evil with like Adam Scott. That's another one.
There's a lot. There's a lot of camp movies that end this way. With a race of some sort, or like a triathlon.
Every movie like that. There's many of them. Like, as we see right now, there's just, you might not see it, folks, but right now I'm holding up my hand, and a bunch of like titles are coming through of all the sports movies. Pick and choose which one you think this is based off of. But what I liked about this is that, you have Percy and Annabeth have decided to team up and do their chariot together. Tyson has nothing he wants to do with this at all because he hates it. So he's now their pit crew. And now Percy and Tyson have a heart-to-heart before they get onto the big chariot race. And I love this. This is my favorite part of this entire book.
Yeah. Percy does a lot of, like, reckoning with his jerkishness. Jerkishness? Nope, that's not a word. Cruelty, that's one for sure.
His Richardness?
His pig-headedness is definitely one. Yeah. He basically is like, well, yeah, I was kind of a jerk to Clarice, and I'm kind of glad that she ended up taking the credit for the, like, quest that was actually hers. And also, I'm gonna, like, maybe apologize for, like, being ashamed of my half-brother because I was judgmental and mean. And then Tyson says, like, the best, sweetest thing, and again, it's raining indoors, but just on my eyes.
It's actually raining outside for the first rare time, actually, today. It's raining.
It's raining in LA. What a miracle.
And now we're going to start drowning because we don't have the infrastructure to hold all this water. It's going to be everywhere.
Yep. At least it'll put out the fires. Yeah, we live in a nightmare of a place.
Well, I live in a nightmare of a place. You live on a very charming lake.
No, well, unless it's a tundra of frozen ice and nightmares. So really, those are the two sort of day after tomorrow choices you have.
So we have the two dualities. I live in, like, my house is just always on fire, and yours is, like, the day after tomorrow.
It's on fire, and mine is frozen. It's like heat miser and snow miser, basically, is our situation.
So, what does Tyson say, B?
This is, like, very adorable, and I'm going to get emotional about it.
Well, we also, before we have a disclaimer. It's okay if you guys cry. B, you're totally fine to cry if you want to.
I did get a little bit misty when I was reading some of these parts because I was like, this is adorable. Well, first of all, Tyson gives Percy a gift, which is so cute. It's like a
wristwatch.
A watch that he's been working on, which again, we find out later that it's a bit more important than a watch, but that's during the chariot race. But he gives him this gift, and then this is the conversation they have. Thanks, man. I put it on and found it was surprisingly light and comfortable. I could hardly tell I was wearing it. Didn't finish in time for the trip, Tyson mumbled. Sorry. Hey, man, no big deal. If you need protection in race, he advised, hit the button. Ah, okay. I didn't see how keeping time was going to help a whole lot, but I was touched that Tyson was concerned. I promised him I'd remember the watch. And hey, Tyson? He looked at me. I wanted to say, well, I tried to figure out how to apologize for getting embarrassed about him before the quest. For telling everyone he wasn't my real brother. It wasn't easy to find the words. I know what you will tell me, Tyson said, looking ashamed. Poseidon did care for me, after all. Well, he sent you to help me, just what I asked for. I blinked. You asked Poseidon for me? For a friend, Tyson said, twisting his shirt in his hands. Young Cyclopses grow up alone on the streets, learn to make things out of scraps, learn to survive. But that's so cruel. He shook his head earnestly. Makes us appreciate blessings, not be greedy and mean and fat like Polyphemus. But I got scared. Monsters chased me so much, clawed me sometimes. The scars on your back? A tear welled in his eye. Sphinx on 72nd Street, big bully. I prayed to Daddy for help. Soon the people at Merryweather found me. Met you, biggest blessing ever. Sorry I said Poseidon was mean. He sent me a brother. I stared at the watch that Tyson had made me. Percy, Annabeth called. Come on. Chiron was at the starting line, ready to blow the conch. Tyson, I said. Go, Tyson said. You will win. Such a cute child. He wished for him, and he got his brother. And
well, it's so emotional because it's the first time that Tyson, like, how we've seen Tyson, because it's actually gone back, is that he kind of speaks in, like, not really sentences, like very small things, and this is his very big speech that he gets.
It's still so sweet, and
it's perfect. No, I'm saying it's perfect because it's like the first time like he actually find the words to actually articulate what he wants to say.
Yeah. And he's actually just like, so he's all honesty because he can't not be, so he's just like saying everything that he's thinking. Have we ever compared Tyson to Buddy the Elf? Because I kind of see that a little bit, where it's like this overly earnest character who's like a family member who the character didn't know existed before, and then he shows up and kind of and he like uproots everything, but in the end it's like, oh well, actually you like helped me in this way and I judged you before it was fair, and like that's kind of a similar reconciliation that happens here. And because he's so sweet and honest, that he's like not even mad at Percy about being standoffish when they first met, because he's just like feels lucky that he actually got to meet Percy in the first place. And I'm gonna weep for 1,000 years.
Well, the great thing about Tyson is that he never like falters. His character always stays the same. Like he, out of everyone, he does have a character arc, but it's so minor of like, hey, this is where he is in the beginning. But the character arc that he gets is more like having friends and getting all these things rather than being lonely.
Having friends and also proving to people that he's like worthy, like proving to people that he's helpful.
So the great thing about Tyson is his entire character never changes. Everyone around him changes to become better people from when they started in this book, which is a very important thing to have, because you have a character that is so happy and like all he cares about is peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and making people smile. And that's all he needs to do. They didn't have to have the thing where it's like they have the fight. It's like Step Brothers, where they have the fight and then they both change their personalities, but then in the end they go back to their personalities at the end of the movie. But it's that situation of just having a character that is just so like free and happy. Like I've worked with like a lot of like special needs kids in high school when we had like our classes that we would do stuff like, you know, like the buddy system. I can't remember what it was called, but it's like you can look at that and these people are just pure joy. And that's what Tyson is. He's pretty much pure joy in this hellish world where there's going to be this war that's going to be happening. Luke is this terrible person. He takes all these monsters and takes the good out of them. Like Tyson is a baby. Like he has no opinion on anything except peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And
he doesn't hold grudges. He's like a very sweet, forgiving person. Also, Tyson is very grateful for everything. He's grateful for his friends. He's grateful for anything that he gets.
Well, that's because he was homeless and he appreciates everything, because that's kind of the moral of having, like, if you don't have a lot, you become, you appreciate the little things in life rather than your entire life you've been given things. You won't appreciate the small things.
Yeah, it is a little, I mean, the weird justification is like, okay, I get that, like, they're afraid that if Cyclopses don't have things, then they'll turn into, like, or if Cyclopses have too much, then they become polyphemus is basically, like, the crux of that thesis, which is a little bit weird, because I don't think that all Cyclopses are the same, as we've learned throughout this book. So, like, I don't personally believe that if Tyson had lived on, the island that Polyphemus lived on and had everything that he ever needed, would he have been terrible and just murdered all the sailors that showed up? Like, I don't think he would have.
It's the argument of, like, nature versus nurture, almost. It's like, is he born evil, or does he inherit being evil? It's I want a child psychiatrist to explain all this. I have no degrees to explain. It depends, I think, on the environment, really. And Tyson grew up in the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that... I just disagree a little bit with the book, because the way that it's phrased, like, oh, he grew up on the streets and he always, appreciated everything, and that's why he ended up being the kind person that he, or, like, whatever, the kind Cyclops that he is. But I don't think that that's necessarily the case, because that's also, like, a very cruel justification for the way that Cyclopses are treated. And then you think, like, oh, well, there's other Cyclopses out there probably who are living on the street and they don't have the help of Poseidon. So I don't give a complete pass to Poseidon and the whole situation with that. Like, it's way more complicated, but yeah.
Again, it's the idea of being direct and being indirect. Like, I'm sure Poseidon wants to directly help them, but he can't.
Right, the direct and indirect thing also is complicated.
But yeah, it's a very interesting thing that we have in this lesson between... I guess that's the kind of what we've been talking about this entire chapter, is the idea between helping someone directly and indirectly, because Hermes helped Percy indirectly with all the gifts, because every gift that he was given helped on his quest. Same as with last year, Poseidon did the exact same thing. Instead of just giving them things that they absolutely need, they had to, use them at the right moments rather than, you do this, you do that. It's the same thing here. Tyson was being bullied and all these things, and all he wanted was a friend. So guess who shows up? Sally Jackson sees Tyson, and he calls up the welfare place, and they get him into the school, and then Percy and Tyson become friends because Percy's always inherently good and always goes to people that are always being bullied or there's something different about them. If you look at Grover, he became friends with Grover really easily. He became friends with Tyson really easily, and through that, Poseidon helped them indirectly by making them best friends, and then once Poseidon helped directly by telling him, "You're my brother," it's like, well, the rest of it's on your own, Percy. I can't really help you in this situation.
Yeah, I really like Tyson's character arc, like you said, because he doesn't really change, and that's... Yeah, it's the people around him who change, and that's, like, a good lesson also about people who are different, especially, like, speaking to... It's hard to map, like, human things onto this. It's, like, to some extent, it's, like, a disability, but also to some extent, he's, like, of a different, like, race or group than them, so it's not, like, quite exactly a one-to-one thing that you could place onto, like, actual human dynamics, but it's good to be like, oh, it's not like he became different. He didn't turn into a demigod. He didn't start to act differently. It's not like him trying to change the stuff that people were judging about him. It's other people going, oh, well, actually, I was being unfair about judging you for those things to begin with. And that's, like, a good thing to put in a children's book, I think.
Well, for me, I think the philosophy from this is pretty much like what I think about in real life is all the friends you should make you better people. Like, you should always strive to be a better person than when you first met them. And that's kind of like the philosophy here of everyone hated Tyson, but once they got to know him, they became better people. Like, they understood, like, tolerance, and they understood, hey, this is Tyson, this is who he is, he's never going to change this way because of his nature. And that's okay because he's the one exception, and that's great. So we're going to change ourselves, so maybe the next time we kill a monster, we think about Tyson. Oh, maybe that might contradict each other a little bit. This
was a very touching chapter. I liked it. I liked that, Tyson gets the apology that he deserved and the credit that he deserves from Annabeth and Percy. And then the best part about Tyson is he doesn't even make a big deal about it because he wasn't even angry in the first place and he didn't hold it against them. And he never even wanted like any of the limelight or begged for the credit or got any sort of grudge because of the way he was treated.
And then he hopped on his rocket sleigh and went back to the North Pole.
Yeah, because he's an elf, a magical elf, teaches you the meaning of Christmas.
And then he became a children's book author.
Yeah, exactly. Tyson, the elf Cyclops.
Hey, there's a Christmas special that we need to have. I'm just imagining like Tyson like in the North Pole with all the elves making the toys.
If anything, actually, if he's any Christmas special character, he's also a lot like
He's the Yeti.
The Abominable Snowman. Yeah. Yeah, because it's just like, instead, at the end, he helps them put the star on the Christmas tree.
That's who that is me in a nutshell, is that Abominable Snowman. But, so they have the big chariot race, pretty much, it's just more action, like, we can kind of, like, skip it a little bit, except for the main thing is...
I mean, basically what happens is that they win. Like, describing it, like, the specifics of, like, who is in first and whatever, like, they win in the end. Of course they win. Well, we're thinking about the title of the chapter, right? Because you think, the chariot race ends with a bang. The bang is like, there's Greek fire, which is this kind of like explosive stuff that after a while, then it burns and then it explodes.
I think of like Game of Thrones, but I think of Greek fire with the gigantic, like they burn the whole sea type of Greek fire. But Greek fire from Game of Thrones is based off of Greek fire. I guess it's called dragon fire. Whatever. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's a similar thing, I'm sure.
But I guess the most important thing about that is Percy Jackson has the setup of the watch, and the payoff is he's cornered, the bomb's about to go off, he clicks the wrist, and the wristwatch is an actual shield, and it saves the day.
Which we just talked about this. We just talked about he needs a shield. I even said that. I was like, he needs something that you can carry, like a pen, that can turn to a shield. We definitely had this conversation like a couple episodes ago. And then now he has a shield.
But it saves the day. Everyone's super happy. They pull into the station, and pretty much Percy, Annabeth, and all of them have their gigantic speech where Annabeth apologizes to Tyson. Yeah,
we already sort of read that sort of ending thing where they admit that it was Tyson who helped the whole time.
Annabeth kisses Percy on the cheek.
Yeah, it's literally like the ending of a sports movie. Like, yeah, Annabeth kisses Percy on the cheek.
And at that moment when Annabeth kissed Percy on the cheek, I just went, this is where the shipping begins.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it probably began way before that for sure. But yeah, this is where it's like, oh, it's canon or whatever, like the slow burn romance, which again, as we read in our bonus episode with Rick Riordan's correspondence about the movie, is super different because it's like their dynamic of Annabeth and Percy, they're immediately like, well, they're older too, and they're immediately like flirting with each other. Well, this is way more like they're friends first and then gradually, obviously. I know that there's gonna be some sort of relationship thing because I'm not dumb, but like it's much more of a slow burn.
Well, I mean, it's almost like spelled out for you almost like throughout this entire thing because they always talk about how pretty she is. We're not talking about ships, so we're going to get off this boat real quick. I'm throwing that anchor. We're like pulling that up. We're sailing away. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, down with the ship. We're done with that. But yeah, basically, this is like a subtle way of being like, oh, well, now they're like sort of whatever, starting to be different than friends. And then we think about how they're sort of related, and it gets all gross when you think about it, and it's, yeah.
And then we turn the boat around, and we head towards the Sea of Monsters to hopefully be destroyed by Silius or Charybdis.
Yeah, so we never have to think about the implications of this world again. Yeah, it was a cute chapter. It's the ending of a sports movie. Everything's perfect. He gets the girl. He reconciles with his brother. Like, it's like beat for beat the exact same as like one of those movies.
And nothing happens, as if like this is the last chapter of the book.
Yeah, it ends like, you could have ended here really because most things have wrapped up. Except for, I guess, Talia Tree is still recovering. But yeah.
You could have ended it right here, B. But you know what? This is the first chapter we've ever had that doesn't have a cliffhanger. Or like, and then read the next chapter. B, what's the name of the next chapter?
The name of the next chapter is Chapter 20, the last chapter. The fleece works its magic too well. What does that mean?
What do you think that possibly could mean, B?
It's gonna like make the okay, so it's going to heal Talia's tree. Is it going to trap them in Camp Half-Blood? Is that what's going to happen? Like, they're going to make like a force field that no one can get through because it's so powerful and they're trapped forever in this magical land that the fleece has made like so lush and beautiful with its nature powers. That's all I could think of. I mean, that's like all I think of as far as like the fleece working its magic too well. Something, because all it does is just like regrow things basically and like heal things.
Yeah, that is true. But remember, there's some underlining things throughout this story that might make this too sinister. Because remember, this is just me. This is not even a spoiler. But earlier in the book, Luke did say he was going to give him the fleece regardless after he was done using it with Kronos.
Right.
So is this a part of the plan?
So is there like a dead thing on campus that's like within the grounds of Camp Half-Blood that is going to be like resurrected via the fleece and like mess everything up? Like I'm thinking something like that. Yeah. Like maybe it's gonna help something that's sinister.
It was built on an ancient Viking burial ground. They moved the headstones, but they didn't move the bodies.
Yeah. But all of like those horned helmets were just kind of poking out of the ground. They kind of had to shove them back in there. Yeah, I mean that's like all I could really guess is like something bad that they didn't anticipate is going to be helped by the fleece. But I can't imagine what that's going to be. But it's like that's the literal interpretation of the chapter.
You know, it's a good thing we're not like recording in person. Otherwise, you would just see me like sweating.
I mean, technically, once we're done with this episode, I can just read the last chapter because
no. You have to like, darn it.
I have to wait. Do I have to wait until before we record?
You could read it and then you're like, oh no, because all you need to know is that Poseidon says, "Brace yourself."
Yeah, brace yourself. A bunch of children with braces rise from the ground.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's so vague, like I can't specifically think of like what that means. I can't believe we're on the last chapter now. We're almost done with this book.
It makes me sad because I actually really enjoy this book, but the next book, Lightning Thief is my favorite. The next one's my absolute favorite after that one, and then it goes down. And this one I would kind of can say is it's good, but it's not quite my favorite, but it establishes a lot. So because we haven't been recording like live for a couple weeks, we got a bunch of stuff and we're still going to be doing our first giveaway for the Lightning Thief CD courtesy of Joe Trace. So thank you so much, Joe, for that. So I'll read the first one. It's from Brooke from Canada. It's a riot. I'm new to the series and I love it. It's funny, cunning, and pretty hilarious. Hear you later, Zack and B.
From Lames 007. Who just says, best podcast ever. Please make more. We will.
Don't worry, we'll make some more. That's
forever and ever. That's kind of the inherent nature of our show. It's going to go on for a while.
Till one of us dies.
Don't jinx us like that, Zach.
Well, but don't worry, like one of us will become a spooky ghost and we'll still be doing this podcast.
Just podcasting from beyond the grave.
The funny thing is, I'm sure we have enough syllables now. Like someone could like edit in like all of us speaking to make new episodes now, with, like robot voice.
Oh, that's so creepy! Like a text keyboard that is just like "Good morning, campers." Well, actually, all that stuff is the same. The "Good morning, campers" is.
Oh yeah, that'd be fine. I really enjoyed this chapter. My favorite character is Annabeth.
Luke is a jerk. I think you could just find a clip of me saying that and just every episode just be like, Luke is a jerk. Here's a clean cut of me saying it so you could use it posthumously.
So we have an iTunes review from Ravenflight the Hufflepuff. 6 stars. I love this. I give this 6 stars. Please tell me you're making more. This is my favorite podcast on the series. Please do Heroes of Olympus 2.
I think a lot of people are saying make more because we're almost done with this book, so...
Well, okay, I think we've talked about this before. We have no plans of stopping. We have mountains of books, and Rick Riordan keeps writing books, so we'll never run out of supplies. You gotta start at the beginning. You gotta start somewhere.
Oh, it's really funny, actually, because we're almost done with the book, and then our next episode is going to be our 50th episode. So this one right now.
Yes, this is our 50th episode, which is Yay! Celebrate good times. I'm not continuing because of copyright. Yeah, it's amazing. I can't believe we've done 50 episodes and we're still going. It's almost the end of the year. We haven't even completed 1 year yet. Oh my god.
Yeah, we actually haven't. Yeah, in February will be our year of making episodes. Believe it or not.
So, B, do we get any messages this week? We really want to give one of our CDs away because they keep yelling at us.
We got an email. Hello, Zack and B. I've followed your podcast since the middle of The Lightning Thief, and wanted to tell you that I enjoy it and look forward to hearing your discussions every week. I like your setup with a longtime fan and B, the newcomer, who makes funny predictions, and it's interesting to see the perspective of someone not extremely familiar with Greek myth and legends. Percy Jackson holds a very special place in my heart. I discovered the books when I was 12 and can't fully put into words just how much of an impact this series had on my life. It was the first time I truly became invested in the lives of fictional characters and followed a book series to its conclusion. Percy was also the first male protagonist that ever held my attention. I'm a girl, and all throughout school, most of our reading assignments focused around male characters that I just didn't like or understand. And that changed when my mom bought me The Sea of Monsters, which was my introduction to this world. Both Percy and I come from broken families with largely absent fathers, so I understood his frustration with, and at the same time longing for, Poseidon. It was very inspiring and hopeful for me to see a kid who was not so different from me going on adventures and changing his world. It may sound weird, but I really feel like I grew up with Percy, Annabeth, Grover, and the rest of the characters we meet along the way. Despite being in my early 20s now, I still read everything Rick writes and is working with other authors to present. Even though I can see a lot more of the story twists coming, I have never not enjoyed a book Riordan has put forth. I now have an infant baby brother. I'm looking forward to teaching him to read and sharing these stories with him. Much like Zack, my favorite of the original series is The Titan's Curse, and I'm very excited that we are almost there. Being of Scandinavian descent, I'm also looking forward to the day, many years from now, when we get to the Magnus Chase series. I love what you're both doing, and I'm happy to see that you're helping bring more light on an author who, although is becoming more widely known, I believe deserves to have the spotlight shown on his work more often. Love, SJ. What a nice email.
That is so nice, and I love it. And we'll eventually do Magnus Chase. We have to figure out, once we finish the Percy Jackson Olympian series, that's when we'll cross that threshold. We haven't decided what we're going to do next, if we're going to just jump into Heroes of Olympus or try something new. Yeah, because we'll be here for 1 billion years. We'll figure it out. We're gonna come up with a nice, clean system. It's really cool that, you're going to probably teach your sibling how to read these books, and I think it's a really good thing to have something like that. It's always interesting when you find a kid who wants to read a book because it's all different and everyone has different tastes. Hopefully they enjoy it, and I think that's a great thing. So thanks for that wonderful email. Okay, so we got an email from Laura. Hi, I've been listening to your podcast pretty much early on. I discovered Percy Jackson in college and got my younger brothers into it. I really enjoy hearing you two buddies geek out about the fun series, and I was wondering if at any point you were considering picking up the pace. Since you're talking the first series 1 chapter at a time, would you consider 2 chapters a week when the books get longer, or possibly the Kane Chronicles, a book at the time I almost think is like a side quest? It would be interesting to hear B's take on what it feels like to consume something new all at once rather than chapter by chapter. My favorite series is Heroes of Olympus. Thus far, still mortal, Laura. I think we're going to keep to the dynamic of 1 chapter at a time because for us, it's much easier for us to talk about stuff and not skim.
Yeah, we deep dive a lot. Yeah, because I do think that, because I'm coming at it also not only new to this series, but, doing Unfortunate Associates where I was rereading books that I read as a kid, so I was familiar with them a lot of times. So there was like this whole other aspect of like I had preconceived notions about stories that ended up being different than my memory, but also I read a book a week instead of a chapter a week, which is really different. But I actually have learned to appreciate this format a lot because a lot of times when you're looking at like the broad strokes of a book, it's hard to really zero in on moments. A lot of the time, like you can't, do like a lit student here, like a close reading of, a specific passage or something like that, especially as books get longer. Like if you look at a book in its entirety, it's really hard to do that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what I like about like the format we have right now.
Yeah, and when it comes to like books like that are like phone books, I always like to go to phone book fantasy. Like I'll read it the first time, and then if there's a podcast or something that's like a reread of it, like I think Tor has an amazing job with doing that with the Stormlight Archives and the King Killer Chronicles, where they take a chapter and they analyze it and they talk about it. And I find that to be so fun to do for certain books. And I think if we did that with the Kane Chronicles, where we read it all, we would lose a lot of the like nuance a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, I think back to like when I was a literature student and I was reading like 5 books a week for different classes, and I had to like come up with sort of like close readings of different things. And it's like kind of difficult to do that. It's hard to remember specific moments, even if you are like taking notes and making sure that you like jot down things. There really just isn't enough time in an episode, if we want an episode to be within reason, like about an hour more or less. You know, you want to like look closely at things. And I think that that's been kind of nice for me to like really appreciate and look at like little details. And it's made me maybe enjoy this series more. I don't know if I read like The Lightning Thief, or now we're almost done with Sea of Monsters. If I had read these books like just back to back, like, you know, they're pretty short. I could have read probably both of them in a day, you know, maybe 2 days. Like they're not long books, but I don't think I would have appreciated them the same way, because I wouldn't have been picking apart like, oh, well, this theme here. And, you know, you don't truly... It's sort of like when you reread a book and learn to appreciate something, but instead it's because I have like this space to like reflect on things. I think I like it more that way.
When it comes to like rereading these books again, it's like, it's kind of like the idea of like having like a steak. Like it's okay to savor it sometimes, or you can just go in and eat it like caveman style. And when it comes to these books, it's like holding on to it and like just finding the nuances, because you could never, ever, ever achieve that by just going 2 chapters at a time. We'd have like 3-hour podcasts, because
it would take a really long time. Yeah, because we take pretty short chapters and we make them into an hour-long episode. So
by having that, we have the opportunity to like dissect things. And wouldn't it also be better for a person like there's twice as many episodes having it chapter by chapter than just doing a whole book. And then it's like, well, you missed this part. This is my favorite part. I want you guys to talk about it. And you're just like, we forgot about it because we have to like condense all of our reading into like a week. Yeah.
Yeah, because in 40 minutes or whatever, in about an hour, you have to like touch on like, okay, there's like 20, like just think about it like mathematically, there's roughly 20 chapters.
There's 20 chapters, but think of it like this way. If we did 2 chapters right now, we would miss a bunch of the things we wanted to talk about, such as all the Hermes stuff, things with like indirect versus direct contact with your parents, and you would lose all these themes. And I mean, we could easily do something like that, but I feel like for us and for our fans, I mean,
for our bonus episodes on Patreon, we do that, where we'll read a book and we'll talk about the whole book. And that's like a different kind of discussion, I think. It also probably works better for me anyway with books that I've already read. So I'm just kind of like reflecting on a lot of things, like whatever we did at an episode on Matilda. And, you know, that's kind of...
Also, the benefit of having like reading like a chapter a week is it's very easy. Like we could read it right now or wait until the last minute and kind of digest it, rather than reading a book and you're just like, I got to get done before the time period. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people don't have, also like the time to read a book.
Because we want this to be kind of like you sit down while you're listening to this, you finish reading the chapter. It's kind of like us having a conversation, kind of like, let's get some coffee. Let's talk about this chapter in excruciating detail.
Yeah. Let's completely explode apart like this tiny little thing. I mean, you wouldn't have conversations where we literally just talk about like the phrasing of something, or like even just especially with Rick Riordan, the names of the chapters each have their own loaded meaning, and in this way that we get to like dissect that, and I get to make predictions every week based on what the name of the next chapter is, which is pretty helpful. The way that Rick Riordan names his chapters, it's like, okay, I have kind of a little bit of information about what's going to happen next.
Thank you so much for that wonderful email. We really appreciate it. We have another email from Chloe.
Wow, lots of emails this week.
We had a lot of competition this week. And also, we haven't been reading emails for the last couple of weeks. Apologize for that. It's called A Smooth Doodle. Dear Zack and B, the annoying fangirl is back. Here I have a doodle I made in English class after finishing my work. Of course, I'm not an idiot. So, B, do you want to describe mine? Because this is an amazing piece of fan art.
Yeah. So you're sort of, I mean, we're both in power stances. You're like really, your leg is sticking straight out. It almost looks like you're about to do like a roundhouse kick a little bit. Like your leg is bent, the other one's straight out. Your hands are together in sort of like a praying position.
It's kind of like what they do in like memes or like the old timey, like, I don't know. Like, I always see it in like Vines where they would do like the praise stance and like squat.
Yeah. You've got a t-shirt that says Pupper. You've got sunglasses. You've got Rosie, who also has sunglasses, and a little party hat, I believe. I think that's a party hat. So it's a very cute drawing of Rosie. I just love everything. The energy of this picture is really funny.
Like for you, yours is kind of like the way you're like also in a power stance, but the way I'm looking at it is kind of like the dance they do in the Breakfast Club where they put their legs like side by side and they scoot on the banister. And you're like wearing sunglasses.
Yeah. Or like, I'm doing like a crab
it's
walk.
It's like a crab walk. You're wearing sunglasses. Pfeffernuss is wearing a little crown and on your head. And you're wearing a shirt that says Hedgehog Parents. I like this.
With another hedgehog on it. This really captures my essence. It's not the closest likeness to me, I don't think, but it definitely looks like what I look like on the inside.
Also, Pfeffernuss wearing sunglasses and a little crown.
Yeah, Pfeffernuss also has we all have sunglasses. Both of our pets have hats. It's really, there's a great vibe going on.
I, for one, put hats on my dog.
Yeah, see, Pfeffernuss doesn't really like hats. I put a Christmas hat on him when we first got him, and it stayed for like a second. Hedgehogs don't like things on their head that much.
Rosie just is like, I'll fine, just give me belly rub.
Yeah.
So we ran this through a very complicated algorithm. We actually had many computers going, like the old-timey ones with like the reels.
Beep, boop, boop, boop.
And we've came to a conclusion that the person that's going to win a copy of The Lightning Thief. So the winner is SJ. Woo! So I'm going to totally email you, or if you don't hear back from me, email me your address, and we will send you that copy of The Lightning Thief ASAP.
Yeah. Make sure that if you're like a child, ask your parents if it's cool if you're receiving a CD from a podcast.
Well, the problem though in that situation is they're gonna say, "Yeah, I asked my parents," and then we'll send them the CD pretty much. So
yeah,
just don't worry. We're not gonna like throw like anthrax in the mail. We're gonna just throw a CD.
I know. I remember like typical safety things. Don't give your like address out to random people who you don't trust. Just like remember that.
Well, we have a show and we have like Would Our Faces Lie to You?
We have notoriety where you should trust all weirdos with podcasts.
But yeah, no, you're gonna win something. It's gonna be super fun. And ask your parents, but don't give your random mailing address to anyone that doesn't have a podcast.
Yeah, seriously. Just, I want to give that as a heads up because there were some things. We don't want you sending us, like, we don't need your social security number. We don't want your credit card.
We're just going to ask you for your address and what you want on the box, and that's about it. We're going to send it from a disclosed address, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. Oh, one more thing before we end this episode. If you're listening to this and before this, you're a time traveler. After this, congratulations. Me and B are going to be doing a live stream on Friday. Today's Thursday when we usually record. We're doing a live stream for World Builders, an organization run by geeks for geeks, which they are raising money for their annual charity drive for Heifer International. Pretty much what they do is you give them money. They go to places that don't normally like get things such as goats, chickens, and clean water, sending a girl to school. And they will teach people how to farm, how to pretty much use the resources that they're going to give. They don't mess up the ecosystem in any way, shape, or form. They don't ask them for anything. They just simply teach them how to use certain things, such as with a goat, they teach them how to milk it, how to make cheese, and if you have to kill it, that's what you do. But it's a great little program. So B and I are going to be doing that. We're going to be giving out some exclusive prizes.
Yeah, we tweeted about it, so I know that this is coming out after our live stream, but I'm sure you guys will see it. I'm going to try to tweet about it as much as possible and retweet the Radio Camp Half-Blood Twitter, so you guys have a chance to, like, stop in and see. We're going to be playing some games, having some fun guests.
Don't worry if you guys aren't able to donate at that time. The charity, by the time this is finished and this is out, the charity will still be going on for one more week. So please donate if you want to. It's an amazing organization. And you also get, for every $10 you spend, you get a lottery ticket so you can win things such as a trip on the Joko cruise or signed books from fantasy authors such as Patrick Rothfuss, Neil Gaiman, many, 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 many more amazing authors, as well as many, many prizes. If you like D&D, Critical Role has some exclusive content. If you like, I guess if you're a critter, you could win some stuff that's like for that, and so much more stuff. So please go there. We actually have a team page at Radio Camp Half-Blood. It should also still be up. Our whole goal is to get a whole cow. Holy cow. That's what we want.
A whole cow. Yeah, so it's $500, right, is the goal?
Yes, our goal is $500, and we're going to be doing a live stream. It's going to be really fun. Thank you guys for my soapbox speech, but it's really important. This is the type of stuff that I love. Like, if $10 can change a person's life, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that stream. It's going to be incredibly fun.
Thank you guys for listening to another wonderful episode of Radio Camp Half-Blood. B, where can they find you?
You can find me on Tumblr at twinpoetry.tumblr.com, and you can find me on Twitter at bkellygorman.
If you want to follow me personally, you can follow me at Suda41, that's SUDA41. If you want to follow our Twitter for our show, that's at halfblood_radio. If you want to email our show and win some exclusive prizes such as the Lightning Thief CD, you can email us at radiocamphhalfblood@gmail.com. We have a Patreon.com/radiocamphhalfblood. We also have T-shirts available at TeePublic, so just type in Radio Camp Half-Blood. I think the sale's still going on, so you can still get them super cheap.
Oh yeah, for the holiday sale? I do believe it is. Hold on, I just want to... Yeah, so there's a holiday sale still going on. There's 25% off your entire order if you use the code HOLIDAYCOOL at checkout, so you guys can get cool Radio Camp Half-Blood merchandise for stocking stuffers and gifts and such, or for yourself, treat yourself.
Yep, we also have stickers. We have small little things. I wish we could like knit little sweaters for our dogs and or hedgehogs. It's in the works.
Yep, definitely.
But thank you guys for listening to another wonderful episode. Any advice for the kids back home, B?
Try to stay calm during the holidays. This is advice also for me, because it's about to be a very busy time. It's going to be a lot, you got to get gifts, you got to deal with family, it's a lot going on, but, just take some time to, like, relax, take a breather, maybe have a nice, like, cup of tea, don't stress out too much. That's my advice.
My advice this year is Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Zach.
I'm B.
And keep staying mortal. Bye.
Bye, guys.